In this video, you're going to learn about writing the most effective user stories, as it's a weapon that a product manager can use at their disposal. So stay tuned. If I were to oversimplify it, a user story is a concise description of a product feature which helps the user go from a zero state to a hero state, or in other words, which helps a user to achieve a particular goal. That is what a user story is in very simple words. The reason I'm emphasizing on user and goal is because every time you're writing a user story as a product manager, you have to keep user at the center of your mind and then write something in a user story. If the user story is not user-centric, it doesn't make any sense. It's not useful. So whatever text you write in that user story, it needs to keep the user at the center of it, and that's the main purpose of a user story, and that's how you're going to achieve what you want to achieve as a product manager. Now, here are the 5 components of a user story. First, the description. Second, the acceptance criteria. Third, the technical details. Fourth, dependencies. And fifth are the questions. So if your user story contains all these 5 components, I think you are well covered. You have done a very good job as a product manager in defining a user story for the engineering team to work on. Now, if you notice, all these things are not something that you can fill on your own. So that is a very important thing to keep in mind, that a user story cannot be complete by just you writing something in that Jira ticket. No. So it's a team effort which will need to happen for a user story to be marked as not completed, but for a user story to be completed or to meet the definition of start. So it's a team effort that you need to focus on, and something that you want to always keep in mind whenever you're writing user stories for the engineering team to pick up for development. Now let's look at each of these 5 components one by one. First one I said is a description. So this is where a statement like, as a user, I want to do particular action so that I am able to achieve this goal. So this syntax is what you have to write in the description at the top of a user story. Many people call just this as a user story, whereas this is only one part of the entire user story in Jira or whichever tool you're using. But this is a description that needs to be there for sure whenever you're starting off, because if you think of it from a product planning perspective, you wouldn't start off by writing technical details. You're going to start off by writing this description, and then based on that, you're going to be dividing it further to make sure that engineers understand it and they know what needs building. So this description is a very crucial part. This is something that has come off from an epic. So as a user, whatever task that they want to do, and after they've done the task, what is the goal that they have achieved? So this is something that you want to write. Now, as an example, if I were to write a user story for maybe an e-commerce website, so I could write, as an online shopper, I am able to easily search for the products by the category so that I can purchase or make a decision on my purchase based on the items that I have shortlisted. Now, you get the point. If it's an e-commerce website, you are a product manager of that e-commerce website. You have to keep the user at the center of this. Who's the user? An online shopper, a person who's being browsed through the products, and maybe they do not buy. Most of the times people don't buy and they just spend time browsing, but there are people who buy as well. So one of the use case or one of the user story for it would be, for an online shopper, they are able to able to browse through the products. Like, if I am an online shop, I want to purchase like a jeans for myself. So I go on the platform or the application or on browser, wherever. So these are the details which you need to mention in the user story as well. But at a higher level, it's going to be as an online shopper, I am able to look for jeans in the category. Now, if I'm not going to be looking for jeans in the category of men's section as an example, because I'm a woman. So I'm going to maybe filter down my search women, and then category is clothing and apparel, and underneath that there comes jeans. So I'm able to easily search through whatever I want to search, so that I can see what are all the jeans available. And the goal here is that I know what are the things which are available on this platform for purchase. So this is what a user story would ideally look like. User story description would ideally look like. Now, after this, the second component that I mentioned is the acceptance criteria. This is going to be a little, you're going to think through as a team. Now, as a product manager, before even discussing this with the engineering team in the backlog grooming meeting or refinement meetings, whatever, You want to make sure you have the description written. Then your job as a product manager at that stage is done. At a point wherein your user story description is written, now you are in a good spot to discuss it with engineering. This is what, like, after explaining that user story description to the engineering team, you have to further divide it, and acceptance criteria, technical details, questions, dependencies, all of these things come out after discussing with the team. You could write down the acceptance criteria beforehand, or you could discuss it with the team and write it on the spot in the meeting. However, it's fine. Now, what comes in the acceptance criteria are more details about that particular feature or that user story that you're building. Now, in our same example, acceptance criteria could be, first, when a customer or the online shopper searches for the products by category, the search results should show all the products by category. That is one of the acceptance criteria. The second one is the search results should be sorted by relevance and it should be displayed on a single page. That's the second acceptance criteria. The third one could be the customer should be able to filter their search results by different factors like the gender, the size, the brand, the price, whatever. Those filter criteria are present. The fourth acceptance criteria here could be the search results page should have a clear and easy to use navigation so that the online shopper is able to achieve the goal that they want to achieve. So if you see, these are all nitty-gritties or the details that we want to put in the acceptance criteria, so that whenever an engineer is developing that particular feature, they know what are the things that they have to consider. Because user story description was very high level, like it's just telling the end goal. But for that end goal, for that whole user experience, there are multiple stages. There are searches, there are filters, there are categories, there's a search screen, there is a screen for a particular product. There are n number of things that could be part of that particular experience. So that is what you need to discuss with the engineering team in the refinement meeting, or you could do that before as well. But that is what needs to go in acceptance criteria. Now, the third component that I mentioned is the technical details. Now, since you are having a discussion with the engineering team in that meeting, obviously, engineers will think that how are we going to implement it? Like, what are the technicalities which will go in here, right? So they can add all those technical details here, whatever they want to. That is not something that you need to advise them. That is something they need to advise, and you can either enter it or they can enter the technical details afterwards, whatever. But as far as the scope of the user story is concerned, that is what a product manager should definitely be able to answer questions on. For the questions, like whenever you are, explaining the requirements to the engineers, there might be a lot of questions that crop up. What happens if, this is the case? What happens if the item is out of stock? Do we need to display them in the search results? So all of these good discussions are going to happen. There are going to be a lot of questions out of it. Some questions you should be able to answer on the go. Some questions maybe you do not know. You need to get an answer to it later. So afterwards. So that can be part of the questions. Dependencies, that will come in picture whenever you are implementing that particular feature. So that is what engineers should be able to bring up, and that is what you want to mention in the dependencies section, so that the user story is all clear. And if there are any dependencies on that user story, which means engineers cannot start the development on that work, it's mentioned as a dependency in that ticket, and it can be resolved before even the user story gets picked up for development. So you see, this is like a complete and a very good user story for the engineering team. So what has happened after we've added all these details? Product manager is 100% confident that whatever requirements I had in my mind, those have been put in words in the user story. Engineers are confident that yes, we understand that requirement and we know what needs building. There obviously are going to be a lot of cases which the engineers think when they are developing. So you cannot predict 100% of things while you are defining the user story. Those can be dealt with later on. But most of the work, at least 80 to 90% of the work of the user story is good, completed. As I said, if there are any dependencies, that is something that needs to be resolved before a user story is picked up for development. If not, the user story is in a good state that it meets the definition of that. So I think this is what a holistic user story should ideally contain. Now, I hope I have given some value or some understanding of what a user story is and how a product manager can leverage this. As I said in the beginning of the video, that it is a weapon that a product manager can use. Why did I say it's a weapon? Because more detailed a user story is, more clear and concise a user story is, more easily you're able to explain your thought process to the engineers, and it gets built the same way. So if at all the user, let's take a look at it from the other side. If at all a user story is not that granular, it just contains some basic details, missing a lot of details, engineers don't understand what needs developing, product manager has not put in all the requirements, and when the feature gets built towards the end, it is completely different from what you expected it to be. So why? Because the user story was not clearly defined. So if it is clearly defined, it's a weapon that a product manager can use at their disposal, and it's going to be really helpful. So do let me know via comments if you think there's anything that I might have missed but you are following and has been proven to be really helpful for you in your product manager role. Do let me know via comments. Otherwise, I'm going to see you all next week. Bye-bye.